Hello, and welcome to the Christchurch Fox Chapel podcast. The fastest growing conservative, evangelical, charismatic, Anglican podcast in the entire Fox Chapel area. It's just me and Ben today in the studio. Well,
we'll still have a good time.
And the Los Yetis.
And the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So quite a few.
Yeah.
And the host of phantom listeners.
Yes, all of you. We're thrilled to have you with us today.
It's Palm, whatever day it is that you're listening to us on day.
Yes, it is Palm Sunday for you. For us, it is the Wednesday before Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
But it's Palm Sunday, and we're concluding this sermon series that has been quite a journey, and bringing it all together the week before Easter.
That's so meta.
Right? So meta. So not like a dog.
It is interesting to talk about the series a little bit because it's been tough. Last week, I don't mind. I just had such a hard time writing that sermon. It was so difficult.
Yeah, it was a good sermon.
I went home on Thursday night, which is the writing day, angry and exhausted. And just frustrated.
How could my assistant give me this terrible passage?
Well, it's an amazing passage, and I don't know. It was so difficult.
Yeah.
And so it has been hard. And this weekend, I think, one of the difficulties is that we're saying several things all at once. So Palm Sunday, the triumphal entry of Jesus, we have this extra liturgy at the beginning of the service and an extra reading as we look at Jesus coming into Jerusalem as it was the week of the Passover.
Yeah.
Hailed as this king and worshipped.
Yeah. Well, should we read the passage real quick?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good idea. Yeah. I'm just going to say that, the week ends with the cross, and so there's this incongruity of how it starts and ends, and you're feeling that, I'm sure, in the preaching.
And yeah, very much so. And it's also like one Palm Sunday, at least in the Anglican tradition, as I learned it, was they always called it Palm/Passion Sunday. Mm-hmm. And like they couldn't even get a coherent name for it. It's like, we're really not sure what this is supposed to be, but we want to observe the fact that Jesus came triumphantly into Jerusalem, and a number of days later he was crucified.
Yeah.
And then they were like, in the American church, I guess, they're like, well, you all are you're not going to come to a midweek service, so we better at least talk about the cross here before you go to Easter Sunday. So it's not like, oh, Jesus gloriously, triumphantly comes into Jerusalem, and oh, Jesus rises from the dead. Like something happened in between there.
So you're detecting in this a kind of attempt to rectify essentially non-attendance on Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's objectively why it is the way it is.
Well, that's so interesting because in England, in the UK, in fact, Good Friday is a national holiday, as is Easter Monday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's a long weekend, 4-day weekend.
My parents don't listen to this podcast, so I think it's probably safe to say this. My mother threw an engagement party for us, for my wife and I, like a decade ago, on Good Friday. Ooh. It was like, ultimate faux pas, and she was calling it. She was calling it Black Friday.
Black Friday,
just getting us two like kind of mixed up.
Get a big TV.
Yeah, they sort of are. Antitheses, opposite poles, in a lot of ways.
They really are. They really are very different days.
But we felt like we were like cringing the entire time. We're like, oh, this is a great party. I'm so grateful for this, Mom, but really, this is just not the day to do it. I didn't have the heart to tell her. Like,
well, this then gets into a little bit of this thing that Robert often talks about, though, is that you can go too far the other way and almost reenact these things so well that you lose sight of the fact that he is risen. We're not re-crucifying him, and we're not literally spending these days, Friday and Saturday, in genuine mourning that he's dead and we don't know where he is and what's going on, and it's not like our faith has been destroyed. And then, guess what? Surprise! Sunday, actually, it's okay after all. He's already risen. And
yeah, well, that's like the pattern of ancient mystery religions, right? Like, the God, we celebrate how.
No, carry on. Don't let them interrupt. This is lost historical point button. Carry on.
I think that one's getting played like every single week now.
You're well schooled.
I'm a nerd, I guess.
Yeah,
that's what it means. This is my favorite part, though.
For you, sir. 1 Mario coin. Well done.
Puts me up to 3. But yeah, ancient. They would sort of recreate the whole like the myth every year. It was like, well, this is the week where so and so is, where this God is going through Hades and on his journey, and he's going to come up, and it's like it's almost like so tied to the ritual that it really is just like becomes just a story. But Christianity's different in the sense that it's actually based on like objective factual things that happened historically. And so like we do this liturgical stuff, and it can be helpful, I think. But it's not like Jesus rises from the dead again every year.
Right.
Jesus rose from the dead.
This is not a sort of pagan thing of the sun coming up and will it happen again, and Jack in the Green, and will winter turn in the Yule log? Will we have spring ever again?
Yeah, we're remembering.
Yeah.
And that we're entering back, I guess, in time to remember that objective event. Yeah. So I think that's an important point as we go into Holy Week.
Yeah. Well, so in the introduction, the acclamation and collect for the Liturgy of the Palms, which is how the service begins, just says, from dear brothers and sisters, from the beginning of Lent until now, we've been preparing our hearts by repentance and self-sacrifice. Today, with the whole church, we herald the beginning of the celebration of the Paschal Mystery. On this day, our Lord Jesus Christ entered Jerusalem, as in it's done already, and was welcomed as King with palms and shouts of praise. Today we greet him as our King, though we know his crown was a crown of thorns and his throne a cross. So we know the story already. Therefore, I invite you to follow our Lord this Holy Week from his triumphal entry through his suffering and death to the glory of his resurrection. So there's a preparation for something that we know has already taken place.
Yeah,
a remembering, like you say.
And I love that word, Paschal mystery. That's a total. It seems like a nerdy church word, but like Paschal refers to a specific that conjures the image of a specific story that I want to get into.
Yes.
And maybe not reveal what Paschal means just yet, because that would.
But we ought to commend two things: the Pascha, which is a particular type of bread that you can buy in Giant Eagle this week, or have it bought for you by Jean Pascarella, who always gets me one.
Oh, does she?
Yeah. So every time I see this word, I'm kind of reminded of this lovely tradition.
Shout out to Jean Pascarella.
Yeah.
She's fantastic.
Awesome. All right. So scripture.
Yeah. I'll read the first one and ask you to read the second one, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Matthew 21, we're in verse 1. Now when they, that's Jesus and his disciples, drew near to Jerusalem and came to Bethphage, to the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord needs them.'" I can just imagine that scene.
Yeah.
Like, the Lord needs these.
Try that, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, no, you're stealing a bike, right? But if anyone says anything to you, say, "The Lord needs them," and he will send them at once. This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, saying, "Say to the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." The disciples went and did as Jesus directed them. They brought the donkey and colt and put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. Most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. And the crowds that went before him and that followed him were shouting, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up, saying, Who is this? And the crowd said, This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee. That's the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. So much symbolism, right? In the passage, and the cloaks and the branches.
Yeah. And so much rooted in, so much stuff rooted in the hopes that Israel had for a Messiah. But the thing that I really want to key in for our purposes this morning on this, I was thinking about like, okay, so Jesus, super humble guy, right? Mm-hmm. They spread their cloaks out on his donkey, and I almost like expect Jesus to be like, no, don't put me up on a donkey, like that's too much. But he doesn't. He sits on the donkey and he rides in, and I'm like, what was he thinking? Like, what was going through Jesus' mind as he's entering into Jerusalem? And I think we actually can have a fair biblical clue as to sort of one of the things that he's thinking about.
That he understands the significance of what's taking place.
Yeah. But specifically, the time of year that he's entering into Jerusalem and doing this, he could have come any day, right? John tells us that he went up one time in secret for what was called the Feast of Tabernacles. What was that one again? It was like it's like the camp out sort of.
Right, and palms were associated with that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
The booths.
Yeah, they stayed in they made little booths, little tabernacles or like tents.
Yeah.
To remember
their time in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he could have come for that. It would have made sense to me at least that he would have made his big entry into Jerusalem for Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement.
Right.
Right? Wouldn't that have been a clear symbolism? Well,
either of them would have been.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But he doesn't do either of those. He doesn't come for either of those feasts. He comes for, it could have been the Feast of Pentecost too, but he comes for Passover.
Right.
He comes for Passover.
So he comes for the reminder of Exodus when the people of God were in slavery in Egypt and were dying and were being tortured and abused and working for Pharaoh in an unclean land. And through Moses, they escape. And on the night of the escape, they sacrifice an unblemished lamb.
Let's go there.
Oh, okay. Is that one of the readings?
Yeah,
this weekend?
Exodus 12. You're rocking it.
Oh, okay. Exodus 12.
Yeah, Exodus 12.
We probably can't read the whole thing.
And by the way, that's what Paschal means, right? Paschal is Passover. So when you hear Christ, the
lamb
Paschal
has been
lamb
sacrificed for us.
Yeah, the Passover. It's the Paschal lamb is the Passover lamb.
You're going to tell me next we're going to have to talk about Holy Communion later.
Yeah, well, we might get there. We'll see how the sermon goes.
All right. So in Egypt, in Exodus 12, the Passover is the title. We don't normally read those out in church, but they're helpful to find your way around Scripture. So that's Exodus 12, and they what does it say? Take a lamb according to your father's houses, a lamb for a household, and your lamb shall be without blemish. Verse 5, and then it says, take some of the blood, verse 7, or kill it. And then that's verse 6, verse 7, take some of the blood, put it on the doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat, and eat the flesh at night, roasted on the fire, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, or herbs, depending on how you wish to say
it.
Herbs. And they shall eat it. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled, or blah, blah, blah. Don't let any remain until the morning.
I love this. In this manner you shall eat it, with your belt fastened, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat it in haste. So this would be the perfect meal for me, because
it's the perfect meal for my kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll grow out of it.
Actually, no, Ben eats like a Frenchman.
Does he really?
Oh yeah. Drinks a lot of wine and starts eating when we've all tidied up the table.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Does he drink? You guys, he has wine?
No, he doesn't. No, but he does take about 2 hours to eat a meal like a Frenchman.
Oh, Yeah.
It's incredible.
Really?
Yeah.
Jenna, he would get along with Jenna. She does the same thing.
In this manner, you should have your belt fastened, your sandals on your feet. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Staff in the hand. So you are ready to go, but where? It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both man and beast, which is so cool.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I hadn't noticed that. And on all the gods of Egypt I'll execute judgments. I am the Lord, which is the covenant name of God, Yahweh.
Yeah.
I am. The blood shall be as a sign for you on the houses where you are. And I will see the blood, and I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you or destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt.
Yeah.
This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you should keep it as a feast throughout all the generations. So this is the weekend when the Jewish people are remembering the fact that they've been saved from slavery.
Yeah.
Specifically saved from slavery through the blood of an unblemished lamb, a perfect sacrificial lamb, and through the blood of that marking them out.
And this is like the event that is definitive for Judaism. There's throughout all the Old Testament, no other event is mentioned as much as this event, that where this band of slaves, God's people, are brought into Egypt, and this oppressor arises and enslaves them. And there's this, if you read through the Exodus 5 through 9, it's almost like the tension is kind of ratcheting up between Moses and who's the representative of Yahweh, the Lord, and then Pharaoh, who's the ruler of Egypt, and it's this sort of showdown. And finally, Pharaoh keeps hardening his heart, and then God's hardening his heart, and he won't let the people go. And then finally, there's this final plague where the angel of the Lord comes in to strike down the firstborn.
But here they are, back to the Matthew 21. Here they are, throwing their cloaks on the floor, waving their palms around because they're actually still in slavery. Different boss. Now it's the Romans.
Yeah.
But they're still in slavery, and they're still seeking some sort of national salvation. And the palms become, I think we find that in one of the books of the Apocrypha, I think 4th Maccabees, they become associated with Jewish nationalism.
Oh, really?
And so there's the waving of the palms and triumphant procession, along with the cloaks, along with this prophecy of the colt, and along with the Passover, is all cooked up into one great big thing of freedom.
And this was and this was the ultimate party in Judaism. People flocked into Jerusalem.
Ah, yeah. So the town is packed.
It's packed.
Because,
it's like
right.
Woodstock times 5. Everybody's been making their pilgrimage to Jerusalem, which is like the central city in Israel.
So there's already this kind of fever of both religious significance and nationalistic frustration and hope.
And I think it's highly significant that Jesus entered in at this time. So all of this imagery is in the back. This was going through his mind. This was going through everyone's mind.
Right.
And he knew, because he told his disciples, he knew what was going to happen when he entered into Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And he's using all of this imagery, and he's thinking about that Passover lamb and the judgment that came down upon Egypt, and thinking that there's going to be somehow that what I'm about to do is going to be a fulfilling and a recreating of this.
Okay. So it's an amplifying of the old story and a tying of things together and a culmination of a salvation plan.
Yeah.
But somewhat misunderstood and yet also real.
Yeah.
Because I'm just jumping back to that Matthew 21 reading again. They keep saying this word Hosanna, which is a word of salvation.
Yeah.
And
God save us, right?
God save us. And then on top of that, they actually say Hosanna to the Son of David, which is verse 9, Matthew 21:9. So they're now recognizing that Jesus is descended from King David, in whom there's a prophecy.
Yeah.
And a prophecy of kingship and an offspring or a descendant who's going to come and rule and reign and restore.
Yeah, he's the chosen one.
He's the chosen.
And here he is coming into Jerusalem for the same kind of showdown that Yahweh had with Pharaoh. Jesus is going to have with the religious authorities and the Romans in this dramatic confrontation. And he enters in Jerusalem, right. And what's the very next thing that happens as soon as he's entered into Jerusalem? Where does he go?
Temple.
Right to the heart of the temple, and he starts. This is that famous thing where he just it seems like he flips his lid. I don't think he actually did. No. I think he's totally in control. But he's overturning the tables, the money changers, letting all the birds loose. And he goes, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of robbers." And he causes this big ruckus. And a lot of scholars think that this is the action that ultimately was the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of the authorities. And that was when they were like, yeah, we got to crucify him.
Right, because you fooled with our scheme, our money-making scheme.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it says there's a whip of cords. I can't see it on my screen, but maybe maybe parallel reading, I don't know. But Jesus fashioned a whip of cords, and cool. This sort of threefold scourge was a symbol of authority. So Christ is So actually, rather than rage, what we're seeing is judgment here. Yeah. So you're right. They've said come and save us, and the first thing he does is he comes to this place of presence of God and says, "You've defiled it."
Yeah.
So we've got the defiling, we've got the presence of God, the defiling, we've got the Exodus theme, we've got the sort of Maccabean revolt and Jewish nationalism bound up into it, we've got these nationalistic symbols of the palms, we've got these royal symbols of the cloaks, we've got the prophecy with the colt, we've got the prophecy with King David, this fever pitch space full of people who've gathered, as they do every year.
And his disciples are probably all like, all right, I can just imagine Peter's like, yeah, let's go.
This is it.
I got my dagger. I'm ready. It's revolt time.
It's like that bit where you just start to believe in football that your team's going to win the cup. But that moment of you don't want to let yourself believe too much, just in case it doesn't work out. But you really think it's going to work out.
It's like at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix last year when we were watching Lewis Hamilton make so much ground.
There's
we're
such a reason why I didn't reference the more obvious.
I know. There's such a reason why I had to.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about Bruno. I'm sorry.
It's so painful.
Formula One fans, we're still grieving. This was... Anyway, sorry. I really am sorry. I didn't mean to go there.
No. So we can look at Matthew. Is it 26? Which is the Last Supper.
This is serious stuff.
Look at something more uplifting. So
yeah,
every week we have this memorial meal where every single week we use the same language. We talk about Paschal mystery, depending on which liturgy we're using, and we've got about 50 choices now, but we talk about Paschal mystery, we talk about the mystery of faith, we talk about Christ, our Passover lamb, sacrificed for us, let us keep the feast. We talk about all these things.
What feast? What Passover lamb?
Yeah, we talk about that every week at the table.
Yeah, I know.
So in Matthew 26, verse 26, which is actually the gospel lesson for the day, we have the institution of the Lord's Supper. And actually, Tammy is going to dig into this more deeply on Maundy Thursday at the meal. I'm
going to, in case Tammy hears this before
she will.
She preaches, I'm going to this is like a little tiny piece. I'm not digging into this text. So Don't worry, Tammy.
But on Thursday, we're doing this thing. On Thursday, we're actually reminding ourselves of the Lord's Supper. And we'll come to that in a moment. I'll read the passage. So, now, as they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after blessing it, broke it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat. This is my body." And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you. For this is my blood of the new covenant, of the covenant, which is poured out for many, for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink again of this fruit of the vine until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom."
Yeah.
So this is this is the institution of the Lord's Supper.
And I think it's significant in the way that the gospel writers recount this. The high point of the meal, right, was not the bread and the wine in the Passover meal, right? That's not like the big thing. It wasn't the center point of the meal. What's the center point of the meal is the lamb.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, just like nowadays, like, you don't say like, hey, I'm going to have
Christmas dinner.
I'm going to have some rice with a side of T-bone steak.
Right.
Like, no, you say like, we're having steaks for dinner tonight.
Come around for Christmas lunch. We've got sprouts. We've got got cranberry sauce. We've got everything.
Yeah. God, we're gonna have one of those flaming desserts.
That's right. Yeah. That's what we got.
What's that called? In the English flaming thing that's on fire. The dessert.
Baked Alaska.
I don't know.
What one? Oh, Christmas pudding, of course.
Yeah.
So I've been here too long.
Yeah, you light it on fire.
Brandy-soaked Christmas pudding. Yeah. But, let's go veggie this year.
Yeah.
What miserable.
Hey, now. I go veggie sometimes.
Plant-based Christmas dinner.
I'll probably eat some meat at Christmas dinner.
Yeah. No, Lewis Hamilton has gone plant-based.
Yeah,
so it works.
Everybody's doing it.
So you're right. The centerpiece is the lamb.
Yeah, the centerpiece is the lamb, and that's not recounted here, and that's because the lamb is about the sacrifice of the lamb is going to happen a couple of chapters later, and Jesus clearly understood his entire like ministry in this week as being a reenactment and really a summing up or a fulfilling of this Passover thing. So in the very first part, you have the blood of the lambs that allows God's people to pass through the judgment, right? It's not the blood of the lamb that brings the judgment. The judgment's coming down, right? All the firstborn are going to die, which means that your future as a people will be cut off. But God's people will be spared from the judgment through the blood of the lamb. And that's the same thing that happens in this atoning death on the cross. So, yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on that? Because I have a...
You have a load?
No, I have a lot today.
Well, I mean, there's so much with the cup as being symbolic of the wrath or wrath of God, and so the cup is so deeply symbolic. I think one of the difficult things about the COVIDic era, these little tiny plastic pots we keep handing out, the cup is so symbolic, and then he says, "This is my blood of the covenant," and there's covenant theme is suddenly brought in. In covenant reminds us of, let's start with Noah. Let's start, and then Abraham and Moses and David, and this covenant, this promise, this gratuitous deal that has flowed through the whole of the Old Testament.
Yeah,
is actually, Jesus is saying, is actually all about me. It's my blood of this covenant. So this is not the blood of lambs and turtle doves and pigeons and bulls. This is the blood of the Lamb, Christ, me, mine, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. And so he's saying that actually his blood has a cleansing effect upon us. There's the atonement language again.
Yeah,
there it comes in.
Yeah,
there's a mingling now of actually more than one festival.
Oh yeah.
So now we have atonement language coming in.
Yeah, the Passover lambs and the atonement, they're the Day of Atonement, which is where the bull, I think, is sacrificed. There's a lot of this kind of, they're all kind of all of like branches out of one tree, right?
When one of the Old Testament kings, it was a good one, it may have been Josiah, had restored proper worship to the people of God, because they were keeping the right festivals at the right time. Then they wandered away. They worshipped other gods. They went, and the nation suffered. And he restores these things. He actually kind of mingled and merged the two things.
Oh, really?
Atonement and Passover. He merged them into one big event. And what's so interesting about that is that kind of testifies to this, because the thing about the cross is it's really the whole of the covenant story and the whole of the hope and the whole of the year focused into one event.
Yeah. And the whole of all existence focused into one event.
Right.
Right. And you have, so from the perspective of the disciples here, I'm sure that this would have been really confusing and disorienting, and it would have felt like Jesus failed to accomplish any of the things that he set out to do. So it's a rather strange exodus, right? Because what happens, like the next week, life goes on for the Jews in Jerusalem, and the tensions continue to mount, and it seems like an anticlimax almost. But Jesus had in mind a much more significant and subtle at first, but much more significant and deeper exodus. And that's the word exodus, right? Like it comes from the Greek translation, right? Ex hodos, which means
outroad.
Yeah, outroad or outway, or so the way out.
No way.
The way out.
That's so cool.
Yeah. This is why I'm glad this isn't coming out before my sermon, because I just think that's the coolest thing. And I think that's such a pastoral application, right? No matter what we think about the atonement, and there's all kinds of theories of what Jesus accomplished, and we can get lost in it. If it works for you, then that's if a given theory works for you, great. If not, then think about something else. But at its end, what Jesus did was give us a way out of the condition in which we found ourselves after the fall. That we're actually delivered in the same way that God's people were delivered into a life of being boxed in Egypt to being a life of freedom and following God into a promised land. That's what we're given, actually. And there's so much pastoral application there. But you have the look in your eyes like the Los Yetis are drawing nigh.
Well, I don't control them.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I don't want to interrupt this thing.
No, it's okay. I just think that it's I'm not very good at the Wolpian crescendo myself, but I think that there's so much for us to think about in terms of our pastoral application. If we're in bondage to our own sin patterns, or if we're in a situation of in which life is absolutely miserable, that Jesus actually provides the way out. Like that's what he self-consciously came to Jerusalem to do, and to do that in a much more significant existential level than any of his contemporaries understood. So it's just like, it's kind of mind-blowing in the end. Oh, there they are.
But is it meta?
Yes, I think it's meta.
Oh, we found one.
I think it is meta.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you for preparing this series for us. And for those of you listening, thank you for joining us. This has been a podcast of Christ Church, Fox Chapel. We're so glad that you would join us and you would listen. And we wish you all a very wonderful Holy Week. We love you, and we'll see you very soon. God bless.